That means the wedding's on again, and doesn't the bride look beautiful?
The bride looks beautiful? Her?
All brides are beautiful.
You mean she'll look worse after we're married?
Oh, wait till you...
All right, Mr. Howe, I think it's ready for testing.
Let her rip.
I'm gonna dress up like a girl, and you can't make me. You can't make me. You can't make me.
Do you recognize this show? That's right. It's Gilligan's Island, the famous 60s sitcom that once took American television by storm, becoming a legend in the hearts of many at the time. But hidden behind that humorous facade are chaotic and unbelievable behind-the-scenes stories that were deliberately concealed for years. Someone was once drifted offshore while filming in a state of extreme panic. Someone hated their role so much that they cut ties with the entire cast for life. Those are just two of the 20 weird, unbelievable, and surprising facts about Gilligan's Island, things that even die-hard fans have never heard of. Right now, all will be revealed in this video. 1. The cast really drifted out to sea while filming a promo scene. During a promo shoot off the coast of California, CBS decided to rent a small boat to capture some realistic sea scenes. The initial idea seemed harmless, a few minutes of filming a light breeze calm waves. But before the camera could even warm up, a thick fog suddenly descended, swallowing the entire boat. Visibility disappeared. The radio signal was lost. The entire crew and character costumes began to drift into unidentified waters, completely lost. Gilligan was still wearing his red shirt. Ginger was in a thin silk dress. Mary Ann was barefoot, and they were truly stranded at sea. No props, no special effects, no one to yell cut. At that moment, if not for the timely intervention of the U.S. Coast Guard, Gilligan's Island could have become a television tragedy. When the rescue team approached, the first thing they saw was Skipper, Alan Hale Jr., standing at the bow of the boat, truly giving orders like a real-life captain amidst the unexpected chaos. A few shots from this incident were later snuck into the opening credits. But from that day on, CBS strictly forbade all offshore filming. The ocean waves would be simulated by high-powered fans and an artificial water tank. No one in the crew wanted to repeat that terrifying drifting moment a second time. After the moment of drifting at sea for real, few would have guessed that the biggest tragedy that almost happened to Gilligan's Island was not in the middle of the ocean, but right on a desk. 2. Tina Louise. Ginger hated her role and refused all related activities. Among the 7 people stranded on a deserted island in Gilligan's Island, Ginger Grant, the glamorous Hollywood starlet, was always one of the most prominent characters. Her charming appearance, classy demeanor, a complete contrast to the wild scenery made her stand out, catching the eye from the very first episodes. The audience loved Ginger. But the irony is that the actress who played her, Tina Louise, never loved that role and even hated it. Tina came to Gilligan's Island with the expectation of portraying a character with depth very cinematic, not a comedic symbol typecast in repetitive jokes. But from the moment the show aired, Ginger was immediately shaped into a decorative vase role, which made her feel belittled and trapped in a mold she never wanted. That disappointment was not just simmering, but also spread to her relationships with her co-stars, especially Dawn Wells, who played Mary Ann. There was no public drama between the two, but throughout the filming, the behind-the-scenes atmosphere was always as tense as a stretched string. Tina kept her distance, avoided contact, and even refused to take group photos or participate in promotional campaigns many times. After the show ended, the other actors remained attached to their roles, participating in reunion movies, cartoons, interviews. But Tina Louise almost disappeared from all activities related to Gilligan's Island. She refused all invitations to return, did not voice her character in the animated version Gilligan's Planet, and almost completely cut ties with the rest of the cast. To the public, Ginger was an indispensable part of their childhood. But to Tina, that role was forever a shadow she wanted to escape. But the simmering conflicts among the actors were nothing compared to the terrifying, real-life incident that nearly sank the entire crew in the middle of the ocean. 3. The show's name was almost Gilligan's Travels. Few know that Gilligan's Island almost had a completely different title, Gilligan's Travels. Creator Sherwood Schwartz was initially drawn to the resonance of Gulliver's Travels, a classic work about strange journeys. He wanted to name the show with a witty play on words, creating a sense of fantastic adventure. But the problem was, Gilligan's Island is not a journey. There is no travel, no new destinations. It is a story about people stuck in one place, circling through repetitive situations, trying to escape that place without ever succeeding. The name Gilligan's Travels inadvertently suggested a completely wrong feeling. It sounded too literary, too academic, and could even make audiences mistakenly think it was a space travel series or a fairy tale for adults. In the end, Sherwood Schwartz decided to ditch the flourish and choose the truth, Gilligan's Island. Short, memorable, and highly evocative. A name so simple it seemed insignificant, but it became an enduring symbol for decades after. Even when everything was on track, Gilligan's Island still couldn't escape the most painful stab in the back from the very people who ran it. 4. Jerry Van Dyke turned down the role of Gilligan for a failed sitcom. Before Bob Denver put on the sailor hat and became an immortal icon of American television, the role of Gilligan was offered directly to Jerry Van Dyke, the younger brother of the legendary comedian Dick Van Dyke. But when he read the script, Jerry flatly refused. He called it one of the worst things I've ever read, a meaningless sitcom about people stranded on an island with no depth, no prospects. In Jerry's eyes, Gilligan's Island was just a cheap joke, and he was pursuing something bigger. That led him to a project he was sure would be a hit, the sitcom My Mother the Car, where the main character talks to the spirit of his mother embodied in a car. Jerry bet his entire career on this show and lost completely. My Mother the Car quickly became a television disaster, savaged by critics, rejected by audiences, and is still mentioned today as one of the worst sitcoms of all time. Meanwhile, Bob Denver, who took the role of Gilligan after Jerry, not only entered television history but also remained attached for life to this goofy, clumsy, but lovable character. This very decision left Jerry Van Dyke with one of the bitterest regrets of his career. The surprises didn't stop there because this show was wrong from its name. 5. The pilot episode was lost for nearly 30 years. The original pilot episode was filmed in 1963, even before the show officially premiered. But upon reviewing the first cut, CBS executives weren't entirely confident in the series' direction. Not because it was too bad, but because it was too different. The pacing was unstable, the structure was still loose, and especially the cast was not yet complete. The role of Ginger at that time was not a Hollywood starlet, but a quiet secretary. And the wise professor everyone remembers was originally played by a different actor with a completely unsuitable demeanor. CBS shelved the entire episode. Not canceled, but not aired either. It lay dormant in the network's archives for nearly 3 decades as if it had never existed. It wasn't until 1992, amidst a wave of nostalgia for classic series, that the original pilot episode was aired for the first time, surprising millions of fans as they saw Gilligan's Island in its unformed version. But not all the pain in Gilligan's Island was acting. There was real pain hidden behind the laughter, and no one knew until it was all over. 6. The show was canceled at the last minute to make way for Gunsmoke. After 3 successful seasons with a loyal audience, CBS had approved plans to produce a 4th season. The cast began to settle their lives around Los Angeles. Many had even bought houses near the studio, ready to commit to the project long term. Spirits were high, the script had been roughly outlined, and everyone thought they were about to have a new journey with the most famous island on American television. But then, in just one short internal meeting, everything collapsed. The reason didn't come from poor ratings, not from a scandal, not from any professional reason, but from the personal preference of the CBS CEO's wife. She was a loyal fan of Gunsmoke, a long-running Western series on the verge of being canceled. And so, instead of renewing Gilligan's Island, the CBS management decided to save Gunsmoke by taking the time slot that had been reserved for Gilligan. There was no official announcement, no farewell, no final episode. The fourth season was canceled in the final week, and the entire cast only found out they had lost their jobs through the press. But perhaps the thing that was abandoned the longest in the history of Gilligan's Island was not the SS Minnow, but its very first episode. 7. Natalie Schaefer. Mrs. Howell hid her real age, 13 years older than her husband. Natalie Schaefer, who played the aristocratic Lady Lovey Howell, always appeared with an elegance, sophistication, and youthfulness far beyond her real age. When Gilligan's Island aired, audiences estimated she was just over 40, perhaps a few years younger than her on-screen husband, actor Jim Backus. But the truth kept secret until her death stunned everyone. Natalie Schaefer was born in 1900. This meant that when she played Mrs. Howell, she was over 60 and 13 years older than the co-star who played her husband. It was not just a spectacular deception about age, but also a testament to the extremely careful image control of a veteran Hollywood star. Natalie kept her age a secret to the point that even her close co-stars dared not ask. She maintained the lifestyle, dress, and demeanor of a high society lady, not just on screen but in real life as well. Once, when the phone line at her home had a problem and the operator ignored her repair request, she simply said to the operator, "I am Mrs. Howell from Gilligan's Island." Less than 30 minutes later, a technician arrived at her house, and she was ready to sign autographs for them. The secrets didn't stop there. The following truth will surprise you. 8. Alan Hale, Jr. Skipper broke his arm but continued filming. During a scene of climbing a coconut tree, one of the familiar comedic situations of the series, Alan Hale, Jr., who played Skipper, suddenly lost his balance and fell hard from a height. The impact caused him to break his arm. For any other actor, this would be a valid reason to pause filming, rest, or adjust the schedule. But Alan didn't do that. He didn't inform the director, didn't see the on-set doctor, nor did he share anything with his co-stars. He silently endured, bandaged his arm in silence, and continued his work as usual. From that day on, he started wearing long-sleeved shirts, keeping his injured arm hidden from the camera's angles, and fine-tuning every movement so that the audience wouldn't notice anything unusual. The chase scenes, the stumbles, the energetic shouts still happened as before. No one knew that behind each of those movements was real pain concealed by professionalism and dedication. Later, when the incident was revealed, the crew was almost speechless. Alan Hale, Jr. was not just Skipper. He was the silent support of the entire crew, a true leader, both on screen and behind the scenes. There were other secrets that didn't come from the script, nor were they on-set accidents, but from the richest woman on the island herself, Mrs. Howell. 9. The animals on the show were real. No special effects were used. The entirety of Gilligan's Island was filmed on a set built in Los Angeles, but to make the island look truly wild, the producers decided to use live animals instead of models or special effects. Real monkeys, real birds, real parrots, even lizards, all appeared naturally in many scenes. It may sound appealing, but the behind the scenes was the complete opposite. The monkeys often ran around wildly, snatching props and climbing on actors' shoulders in the middle of a take. At one point, a parrot landed right on Bob Denver's head and started screaming into the microphone, non-stop, ruining the entire audio of the scene. The birds often flew into the frame or crashed into the camera, as if they also wanted to be in the episode. Instead of being able to control the environment, the film crew had to learn to adapt to a world where anything could happen. But it was precisely that chaos that brought something no special effect could, the feeling that this island was real. Not fake, not perfect, but lively, wild, and unpredictable. When the adventures on the deserted island ran out of ideas, the producers decided to push the absurdity of Gilligan's Island to a new level, literally. 10. Gilligan's Planet, the animated version in outer space. In the early 80s, the series was revived in an animated form called Gilligan's Planet. The setting. After years of failing to escape the island, the castaways build a spaceship and accidentally get lost on a distant planet where they continue, you guessed it, to be stranded. No more coconuts, no more sea, but the familiar chaotic situations repeated themselves amidst a sky of stars and alien creatures. The surprising thing is that most of the original cast returned to voice this animated version, except for Tina Louise, who continued to refuse any association with Gilligan. The role of Ginger was replaced by another actress, but everything else retained the original spirit, only the setting was completely different. Gilligan's Planet was also one of the last cartoons to still use a laugh track for adults, the familiar pre-recorded laughter that had dominated American television for decades. Although it only lasted for a mere 13 episodes, this series served as a strange and silly ellipsis to a journey that was already full of absurdity from the beginning. Even the name of the boat, the most seemingly harmless thing in the entire series, concealed a direct jab at the American media authorities of that era. 11. The boat's name, SS Minnow, was a political satirical joke. The SS Minnow, the boat that brought the 7 main characters to the deserted island, was actually a political jab cleverly inserted by creator Sherwood Schwartz. The name was based on Newton Minnow, the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) in the early 60s, who had once declared that American television was a vast wasteland. Schwartz did not react loudly. He just quietly named the boat the Minnow, a small, weak, and almost unnoticeable fish, as a way to openly mock that statement. Not the Titan, not the Victory, not the Liberty. Just a tiny minnow easily lost and stranded forever. Not everyone who appeared in Gilligan's Island reaped the rewards they deserved when the show became immortal on television, but one person saw further than all the others. 12. Dawn Wells. Mary Ann was the only one to get residuals. Dawn Wells, who played the sweet and simple country girl Mary Ann, was the only actor in the cast to receive residual payments from the series. Not by luck, but thanks to a small detail in her contract, something most of her colleagues had overlooked. At the time of signing the contract with CBS, Dawn was married to Larry Rosen, a talented and experienced agent in the entertainment industry. It was he who astutely noticed the clause limiting residual payments, which only applied to the first few reruns, and suggested an amendment. The producers at that time, not thinking that a silly sitcom like Gilligan's Island would have such a long life, agreed. When the show was rerun continuously for decades, after most of the cast received no additional money. But Dawn Wells was different. Thanks to a line added at the right time, she became the only one in the crew to still get paid every time an audience turned on the TV to rewatch Gilligan stumbling or Skipper yelling. Among a talented cast, not everyone was treated fairly, at least not in the famous opening theme song of Gilligan's Island. 13. Bob Denver fought to get his co-stars' names into the opening song. Throughout the first season, the theme song introduced each character fully, until it got to the last two, the Professor and Mary Ann. Instead of being named like the others, they were lumped together in a vague phrase, and the rest. No name, no role, no personality. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, did not accept that. Even though he was the main character, he didn't consider himself more prominent than his co-stars. When moving to the second season, Denver gave CBS an ultimatum if they didn't put Russell Johnson's Professor and Dawn Wells' Mary Ann names in the opening theme, he would have his own name removed from the credits. Simple, decisive, and uncompromising. CBS was initially hesitant due to the cost of re-recording the song, but the pressure from their own star forced them to concede. And so, from the second season onwards, the Professor and Mary Ann were officially included in the lyrics, a small but meaningful change, affirming the role of the entire cast in the show's overall success. But not everything interesting about Bob Denver was on the island. There's one thing connected to the map of the United States itself. 14. Bob Denver was a descendant of the person who named the city of Denver. Before becoming the fool Gilligan on television, Bob Denver carried an unexpected legacy. His surname Denver was not a stage name or a coincidence, but a real historical trace. His great-grandfather, James William Denver, was once the governor of the Kansas Territory in the mid-19th century, an influential political figure of that era. In 1858, when pioneers founded a new town in Colorado, they decided to name it Denver, as a way to curry favor with the federal government, hoping a post route would soon be established. That name was not only approved, but also became the official name of the capital of Colorado to this day. Many years later, the descendant of this politician became famous in a completely different way, not by governing, not by giving speeches, but by wearing a sailor's hat and running around on a simulated island. From politics to television, from the legislature to a sitcom, the name Denver had gone through a strange journey throughout American history, only to end with the image of a clumsy guy who made audiences laugh for generations. And if you've ever dreamed of soaking in the crystal-clear waters of Gilligan's Island, you'd better wake up. 15. The lagoon was just a set pool. The water was dirty and cold. On screen, Gilligan's Island appeared as a tropical paradise, clear blue skies, fine white sand inviting seawater and characters frolicking in the waves as if they didn't know what cold was. But the truth is, the sea in the show was just an artificial lagoon built right in the middle of the CBS studio lot in Studio City, California. And that lagoon was nothing more than a freezing, abandoned swimming pool. Because they couldn't use chlorine to treat the water for fear of affecting the actors' costumes and skin, the water in the lagoon was often dirty. Murky, had a pungent smell, and a color that was not at all tropical as you might imagine. On early or cool shooting days, the water temperature could be so cold that it turned the actors' lips purple and made their teeth chatter. Yet on film, they still had to splash around, dive, and smile brightly, as if they were enjoying a dream vacation. To maintain that illusion, the camera crew had to watch every angle utilize lighting, and even use high-powered fans to create fake waves. As for the actors, even while shivering in the water, they still had to act happy, as if they were living in a postcard from a luxury resort. And while the audience dreamed of being stranded on that island, the people involved just hoped to finish filming quickly to get out and warm their hands and feet. When a formula that once created a television phenomenon works, people have reason to think why not do it again, just with a different setting. 16. Dusty's Trail, the failed cowboy copy. After the resounding success of Gilligan's Island creator Sherwood Schwartz tried to recreate that magic once again. This time, he placed familiar characters in a completely different world, the Wild West. The project, titled Dusty's Trail, debuted in 1973, still featuring Bob Denver in the central goofy character role, but instead of being lost on an island, they were stranded during a westward migration. It was still a group of people from different social classes, a rich person, a country girl, a bombshell, beauty, a bookish guy, but this time they weren't shipwrecked but rather lost from the wagon train. A cowboy version of Gilligan's Island. It might sound interesting, but the audience didn't think so. Dusty's Trail was criticized for being bland, formulaic, and lacking its own identity. Most reviews revolved around the feeling of seen it before, but worse than the original. The series was quickly canceled after one season, falling into oblivion just a few months after it aired. There's something you might not know despite being apart. For many years, there was a rare occasion when the people stranded on the island years ago appeared together again, but this time in a completely different place. 17. The entire cast reunited on the sitcom Roseanne. In 1995, the hit sitcom Roseanne did a special episode titled Sherwood Schwartz, A Loving, tribute to honor the man who created two classic television series, Gilligan's Island and The Brady Bunch. But what surprised the audience was the return of almost the entire cast of Gilligan's Island in completely different roles. Bob Denver played Jackie Russell. Johnson, Professor, played Becky's husband, Don Wells, became Darlene, and most notably Tina Louise, for the first time in years, agreed to appear with her former co-stars. In the episode, each person embodied a character in the Roseanne universe, creating bizarre but nostalgic situations. For the audience, it was not just a reunion, but a rare time they got to see the castaways share the same screen since the show ended. There was no SS Minnow, no coconut trees, or deserted island, just another television family welcoming them with laughter and gratitude. They may have reunited on television, but one thing about the main character was always kept secret throughout the entire series. 18. Gilligan's real name was Willie Gilligan. Throughout the entire series, the name Gilligan was repeated hundreds of times. But that was just his last name. The character's full name, according to creator Sherwood Schwartz himself, was Willie Gilligan. This name never appeared on screen, no one in the cast ever called him Willie, and the script didn't mention it either. But Schwartz confirmed this in a post-series interview, stunning many fans. The fact that Gilligan had no first name on the show made the character even more unusual. He was the clumsy fool, the center of every disaster, yet incredibly friendly and approachable. Perhaps part of the reason was that the audience never needed to know his real name to love him. The name Gilligan was more than enough to become legendary. That never-revealed name was an interesting secret, but Gilligan's influence went much further even beyond Earth. 19. A NASA astronaut was inspired by the show. Scott Kelly, a veteran NASA astronaut, once lived for 340 consecutive days on the International Space Station ISS, one of the longest space missions in American history. When asked about his early inspiration for his dream of exploration, he didn't mention any famous names in the space science industry. Instead, he mentioned Gilligan's Island. For Kelly, watching as a child people stranded in a strange world, always trying to escape a place they didn't belong, was what planted the seeds for his imagination and his dream of leaving Earth. Even though there were no rockets or spaceships, that island was the first symbol of exploration, a place where anything could happen, and humans always had to find a way to adapt to the unpredictable. Space was an unexpected destination, but the beginning of this adventure started with an invitation to Hawaii. 20. The first episode was filmed in Hawaii to lure the actors. The first episode of Gilligan's Island was filmed in Hawaii in 1963. When Sherwood Schwartz invited Natalie Schaefer as Mrs. Howell to participate, she was quite hesitant until she learned that the pilot episode would be filmed in Oahu. Immediately she nodded, thinking it would be a paid vacation, and didn't believe the show would ever air. She wasn't the only one who thought so. Some actors accepted the roles, thinking it was just a test project film for a few weeks, and then, that's it. But when CBS officially picked up the series, the entire cast had to return to Los Angeles, where the deserted island was built on a studio lot and an artificial lagoon. Many were disappointed. They were expecting seaside dinners, sunny shooting days in Hawaii, and instead got scenes of soaking in cold water on a fake set. But perhaps if it weren't for that initial travel lure, Gilligan's Island wouldn't have had the perfect cast it later did. Gilligan's Island may seem like just a light-hearted comedy sitcom, but behind it is a treasure trove of strange, surprising, and sometimes unbelievable truths. From real-life accidents, behind-the-scenes shocks, to small meaningful details in the script, all contribute to a piece of television history that is hard to replicate. The 20 secrets you have just discovered not only reveal little-known stories, but also show why this show has lived on in the hearts of audiences for generations. If you were surprised, delighted, or have your own memories of Gilligan's Island, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Press like if you want more fascinating behind-the-scenes content, and share this article so your friends can also discover the unexpected things behind this legendary island.